So when we look at God, and I want to go to the next point. When we look at God, God is not a genie. God is not a genie. Therefore, when God builds trust with his people, his job is not to change our circumstances, but to help us trust him in the midst of it. Hallelujah. That's God's job. He's not a genie where we shake the bottle and he pops out and God, my circumstances are terrible. Change it. And he says, boom, it's changed. No, he doesn't do that. But when I go back to my accident, I remember and recall me and my wife having conversations about, how we're going to trade the car in or how we're going to keep the vehicle. We just leaning on our own understanding, saying this is what we're going to do with this vehicle God gave us. And, I'm riding down 34th, getting to 78th, getting ready to make a left turn to pick up my son. And boom, a car comes out of nowhere and hits me. And I'm just, in the vehicle, the first thing that comes to mind is, Mike, pray. And I go back to, Job, 1:20, how he prayed and how he ripped his clothes off. He was frustrated. He was in his feelings. But they said after he did all that, he went to worship. And for me, I said, Mike, you have to worship in this moment because it can get even worse than this. And if you look at the car, that's a life or death situation. And for me to walk out of that incident, not being scarred, not being hurt, not being damaged, I said, God, I'm grateful. I'm not going to say God is not who he is, because if he wasn't who he is, I may not even be here. So when I looked at that perspective, I said, man, God is still God. He's still the same person. Even though I lost my possessions, I didn't lose my life. So this is why I say trust God. And then even in the midst of that, several weeks prior to that, a month prior to that, I lost my grandfather. And then, prior to that, I lost my auntie. And then 2 days from today, I lost my nana. And then I looked at that and I said, God, what are you trying to do? He said, Mike, just trust me. And then eventually after the funeral, my mother, she gets a high blood pressure. She's in the hospital as we speak. And they said she went in not only because of high blood pressure, but she had a minor stroke. And God is saying, trust me. And Satan is saying, I told you so. So when I read this verse from 1:18-8, I'm not reading it just because it ties in with the message. I'm saying it because I'm living this right now. So for those who don't understand and believe that they should trust in God, I'm telling you from personal experience that it's best and it is better to trust God than to trust man.